Hello, listeners, and welcome to this, the 25th episode of the Heresy Accountability Buddies podcast. After a month-long hiatus, it feels like, am Jacob, and this episode I'm joined by...
Dan.
Duncan.
John.
Jamie.
Mike.
And we're glad to have you with us. Before we get into our regularly scheduled hobby talk, and we did have another one join us. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jack. I like long walks on the beach.
No, not like that. Not like that.
Bearded men. Wait, what? Huh? What are we talking about again? What are we doing?
We're doing event shout-outs before we get to hobby progress. We're glad to have you with us too, Jack.
Shout-outs. I got an event to shout out.
Yeah, you got an event to shout out? Hit me with it.
I do have an event. It's in Indiana. It's February, I think the 11th and 12th, and all of my best friends are going to be there.
Well, I don't know who you think your friends are, but there will be a lot of people there. Here's hoping we can get some folks turned out for it. We're still, I think, trying to nail down exactly where tickets can be purchased for that, but you did hear it here. 5 rounds, 3,000 points a round, 3 rounds Saturday, 2 rounds Sunday, and we hope you'll join us. I think this is part of the Indy Storm GT that'll be going on.
Wait, hold on. Is that 3,000 points of heresy?
Yeah.
Or 40K? Because I don't trust that 40K stuff.
You're talking about future events that still have not happened. We can only play games that are currently happening.
Okay, good. So what you're telling me is this is a 5-round event over 2 days. Is this competitive or narrative? I would like to know more about this event.
So we do have a segment, we've got a map cooked up for that. We've had players bring extra models or ships in the past to mark who is fighting for what sector, or sectors plural. This will be kind of the kickoff to, at the very least, the 2020 narrative event series in Indiana. We're looking to have, in addition to this GT event, 4 approximately quarterly events held at the Battle Barn for the fate of, I believe we are Subsector Epsilon. We're looking forward to having folks join us. So yes, 3,000 points, 5 rounds, 2 days. Given this is a narrative event, if you have not joined us for one before, these typically involve registering as either a traitor or a loyalist, and then once the event is underway, each of those teams will kind of splinter off, nominate a War Master, and the War Masters get to kind of be my left and right hand specifically for the duration of the event. I'll need assistance in making sure matches get made, as well as maybe distributing some minor buffs and boons. I do want to make sure that I make a shout for those of you who have attended events in Michigan or specifically in or around the Nashville area, Nashville, Tennessee. We do honor those dog tags here at our events in Indy, whether that's at the Battle Barn or at the GT. Do be aware that the Michigan event tags, as they have been previously, that have allowed you like rerolls in a game, those will not be honored. We will be having an alternative system, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's going to give an opportunity for us to get some more, hopefully, desirable, almost collectible swag out there into the community. I'm hopeful for the directions it's going to go.
Is it going to be like Pokemon? You want to catch them all?
It possibly could be, but it's a little more interesting than that.
Yeah. I can already tell that I'm definitely going to enjoy attending this.
We're hoping so. Also, specifically, since I know Duncan and Jack are here, we're looking to have at least a couple missions, part or partially inspired by some of the missions that you guys just tested weekend for us. If I can circle back a little bit to that episode, we did some, for lack of a better descriptor, 40K inspired missions, which is a very different mission design paradigm than what Heresy typically deals with. Most of the games that I see in the big rule book feel like they will come up, let's say 20 points or less, give or take, probably typically 10 or less, unless you're looking at kill point based games. And that's not bad. We're looking at what we can do with alternative mission structures to open that up and to reward or induce some alternative scoring choices. and if or what that means for gameplay outcomes. So for those of you who played last edition with us, you remember there were a couple missions over the course of that edition that gave different unit types or force organization slots, which didn't natively have scoring or objective secured in the previous edition, the ability to gain. And so we're looking at ways to kind of inject that and reward, again, those different gameplay and list construction ideas in our mission structure. But there is some give and take to that. I know that the particulars that I tipped to were that units granted the line subtype, which do not have it natively, only by mission rules, so this will not necessarily trip over your right of war, giving you additional scoring options. They tend to be worth additional kill point to be picked up. So hopefully, again, there's a little more give and take to that, and hopefully that can be exciting or dynamic game.
Well, sounds like a lot of fun, and I can't wait to go. Jack, will you be going with me?
I really wish I could. But
that's why you're going to.
Called work.
Huh?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Work.
That sounded like a yes.
Okay. Yes.
I heard him say yes. He's going.
Yeah.
I will be there with bells on.
Yeah, you could just be sick. It's not like you're recording it or anything.
And who's going to drive Duncan anyway? I mean,
I guess I'll have to drive myself. That's terrible.
All supplies and everything.
Duncan, please. We all know you're not allowed on the roads after the act.
Which one? I mean, there's been so many.
Well, I was trying not to go and call you out specifically, but apparently I've touched a nerve.
I mean, there's been so many accidents. There was the one with the 73 car pileup, all because of the dancing.
Hey, whoa, we can't talk about that one. That one's still being litigated. Calm down.
Yeah.
I know, but I think this is going to lose.
You'd like to think
your legal advisor has told you to be quiet.
I think it was implied with the job role.
This has already lost enough.
There we go.
I just can't believe that you won't use Jack's full name and you just keep referring to him as...
Well, I mean, let's be honest here. It's Jack.
Fair enough. I suppose that's what he gets for missing our events. Likewise, as far as event shouts, I know we've got Michael on here to talk about his.
That's right. So Texas is going to hopefully have a 4-event series coming up in the next year. The next year, of course, being the great year of 2023. We're looking to start a 4-event series here in the Texas area. We're going to start off in Houston at the Forge. The first weekend in January. I believe that's the 6th, 7th, and 8th of the calendar. Yep, 6th, 7th, and 8th. It's going to be pretty baller. If you've ever been to the Forge for one of my events before, you know we tend to go all out. We really try to flex the hobby jam. John will be there. He's going to be helping a bunch. He's got a bunch of tables he's going to bring. Cody McGarity from Victoria and some of the other Victoria boys are going to come up and we're going to jam. We're going to have 8 rounds. We're going to have 3K games for Frontline and then 1,500 points for ZM. We've kind of batted around doing less or doing more for ZM, but man, I don't know about you guys, but 1,500 feels real solid for points for that. Lets you take some toys, lets you take some cool stuff, or just lets you take just a bunch of stuff, however you want to play it. But yeah, I know Houston will have an event. We're still looking for venues in San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, and then I've kind of been talking a little bit with Alan Bailey, who runs Warzone Houston, and he seems pretty open to us doing part of the event there at Warzone. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. We don't have like a hard yes on it, but it would be cool to be able to do it. They've got a lot of space in that back room. So, but yeah, it's going to be a 4-event series. We're working on a map for the Tejas sector right now. Cody McGarity's doing a lot of the fluff. He's the voice of the dreadnought in this tale. But yeah, it's looking great. Just getting we're gonna have the Dice Baron do some dice, hopefully for event 2. We won't have enough time for event 1. He's just slammed. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming around. Hopefully we'll see some of you guys there. Hopefully we'll see a lot of you there, honestly.
Yeah, here's hoping. I know Texas is a bit of a far throw for me, but the stars that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, and if these smaller events don't tickle you, we can always pick you up at IAH when it's time for Warzone. It's just a jump, skip, and a bump away from the airport. So I know it's funny. I've been talking about going to LVO this year, and if I end up going to LVO, I'll be flying to Utah to drive to LVO with one of the guys who comes to Warzone every year, Mr. Hatch, old Johnny himself.
How long a drive is that?
It's like 8 hours. Yeah, but the flight to Utah should be a heck of a lot easier than the flight to Vegas, especially if you're 6'4" and over 300 pounds. Yeah,
I know that feeling.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sit in that airport or that airplane for I don't want to do it. And drive into Vegas.
I hope they put you in a Piper Cub.
You know what? I hope they put you under the plane the next time you have to fly. And I don't mean, you know what? I used to love you, and it used to be there, but it's gone. I want a divorce.
I mean, a Piper Cub would fit you.
Yeah, it would, yeah, but who would fly it?
I mean,
you'd
have to fly the Piper Cub.
I would have to put my arms out the side without the windows on and flap.
I mean, that's likely. So, yeah.
You gotta do.
One reason I'm not going to be on next week's podcast, I've got a business trip to New York, so I'm not looking forward to cramming into tiny planes for almost 4 hours.
You should before you get on that flight for sure. Heavily.
Awkward silence.
It's because it's hard to see people nodding it's tough.
I mean, it's what we do here. We nod in appreciation in this audio podcast. I mean, that way everyone can see our agreement.
I mean, that's what they said when we had voices for television and faces for radio, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't think we've gotten that as an actual review yet, but I'm still hopeful.
Well, don't worry. Someone will probably do it today or whenever this gets dropped.
I got to write a review.
When I dance, nobody should be watching.
Not even you.
Yep.
Don't do it in a room with a mirror. You will actually turn to stone.
So, without further ado, do we have any additional event shoutouts, or are we ready to segue into hobby progress?
Well, yes, I think I have a non-event shout-out, if that makes not really. So I know we've been getting interest in Adepticon. Normally about this time, Adepticon would be publishing up their list of events and getting ready for what is usually a mid-December registration for Adepticon. Overall, the con is a little behind the 8 ball. We are working on events. Probably Zach and I are running pretty much the same events we ran last year. But we're still firming up the details, and Adepticon is not going to have registration until January. So if you're looking for that, know that there's more to come. They are behind the ball. There will be Heresy represented. I believe Coleman is coming back and running a bunch of events. And Zach and I and some other folks, there will be a big game as always. Zach and I are looking at running a combined 3,000 point team event again. So 2 1,500 point lists on each side, and running the the attrition list, where you start with 3,000 points and then you build a couple of lower value points. I don't remember if it's 2 and 1250 or something like that out of your original 3,000 point list. So that'll be there, and a lot of Zone Mortalis and a bunch of other stuff. So more to come later. But if you're itching and interested, the dates are out there for Adepticon. Hotel blocks are open. The convention hotel sold out, I know. But there will be events. There will be a good Heresy showing. And
the convention hotel sold out in like 5 minutes or something like that. Crazy. That's for normal. But I think some of the other hotels that are nearby that are associated still have.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. That's one of the things that I live 20 minutes from the convention hall, so I don't really pay attention to that part of it, other than the parking, which always sucks. But start thinking about it and realize it's on its way.
Cool. I think I speak for most of us when I say we're almost always looking forward to Adepticon.
Do you need help with terrain or anything like that? Do you need people to bring CM boards? Do you need anything like that?
So that's one of the things we're still working on. I don't know yet.
Okay.
So
well, let me know when you do.
I have a feeling with Games Workshop has changed the 40K table size. Right now, it's not 6x4 anymore.
No, it's slightly smaller.
No, it's a lot smaller.
So I'm curious if they'll run 6x4 mats, or if they'll actually redo all the 40K competitive stuff to smaller mats, because we may have an abundance of mats available.
I think
not that we usually don't have a lot of mats anyway, but
the stuff that they've purpose built and marketed as 40K product has been shrunken. So I think that's part of why the Necromunda tile size changed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway.
Well, let us know if you need mats too.
We'll definitely. Well, yeah. We had enough mats last year. It was just terrain, which works out really nice because they had a bunch of extra mats that we borrowed. So, but yeah, more to come on that.
Cool.
We're glad to have you with us.
Glad to be here. My camera will probably turn off.
Hey, that's all right. We were just finishing a couple event shouts, and then we were on our way into hobby progress. Who wanted to get us kicked off there?
Yeah, I guess I'll start again. So my hobby progress this week has been finishing more of the Sector Frontieris terrain. So I managed to get 4 of the buildings built, and while I was working on the buildings, you only get one kind of barricade, edge of the building, whatever you want to call it, thing to take cover behind. So I decided I don't like that, and I went and found the Necromunda barricades that I have abundance of, or I guess they're called the Mechanicum barricades or Sector Mechanicum or whatever. If you clip those down a little bit, you can actually add them straight onto these Frontieris buildings. So I clipped those down in just the right angles and then filled in the gap behind them with green stuff so I don't keep breaking them off every time I look at them funny. Got those mounted, cleaned up all of the other broken terrain pieces for the Sector Frontieris stuff. And tonight, while we're talking, I'm working on this behemoth, Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler. I got a couple of those.
Those are cool.
Yeah, it is. It's a beast of a kit.
It is.
I've got 4 of them on my lap right now, and I'm working 3 of them on my lap. I'm working through tonight.
Did you get the trailers too?
No, I just bought 3 of the same, the truck, and that way I can take the cab off if I want, because the trailer and the truck are basically the same thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you hadn't bought the trailer yet, and you were thinking about buying the trailer, just buy the truck because you get the extra sprues, and it costs us basically.
Yeah, and I also bought refinery set. I know last time I said I've already got plastic refineries that are made out of guac bowls, one upside down, one not, which I'm still going to use, but I wanted all the extra stuff that comes with the refinery, the hoses and the tool set, stuff like that. That'll be a nice, easy resin cast or green stuff cast, depending on how I go through it. So that's been me. Obviously, more terrain. That's more terrain and more terrain. And no games, sadly. There was a big tanks giving at the Citadel yesterday, but I had some family stuff that kind of come and got in the way, so I couldn't go to that. I will kick it off. Amy.
Well, so if you didn't hear last episode, I've had some family issues going on, so I've had a lot of driving that I've been having to do long distance, and then also taking care of all my kids by myself because of father-in-law. So I really haven't had a tremendous amount of time to work on stuff, but I am still working on my I guess they're called the Proteus GW Land Raider kit. I'm actually taping it up for like the 3rd or 4th coat of airbrush paint as we speak right now. And I've had a couple I've ordered some more paints because I was starting to get low on some stuff, and of all things, so I don't know if anybody the listeners know, but I'm not like what you would call a spring chicken. I'm turned 46 this year, and I've had my 72-year-old dad get in contact with about teaching him how to airbrush stuff. So I've been having to Zoom and Skype call my dad and walk him through basically like an airbrushing class on how to use, kind of the basic stuff, mixing and feathering, and how to use he had been using like a siphon style airbrush. He's making, it's hard to describe it. Basically, he has walls in his basement that he had to refinish, and he put insulation foam up and used Dremel tools to cut basically it looks like pieces of stone, like stonework, in this insulation foam, and then he painted over it, and now he's airbrushing in the cracks to add like dimension and depth. So I'm having to teach him how to do that on Zoom or like over his iPhone. That's what I've been doing, and I guess I will hand it off to Let's Go Dan.
Yeah, so somebody, John, inspired me to look at terrain, and I've got this Kill Team, Into the Dark box, has been sitting on my shelf staring at me as I watch TV. And so I sat down this week and clipped and glued and put a lot of that together, almost done to where I can hopefully, well, it won't be next weekend because I'll be out of town, but soon I want to lay that out with the rest of my ZM 3D printed stuff and kind of put it on the table together, see how it looks, make sure I'm going to like it all together, and This stuff's pretty cool. It's all modular, so the doors, hatches all open and close. You glue them and they can open and close, and then basically the corners are set up to where all the walls are either male or female, and so you can arrange the corners and the male and the female walls in different ways and have different layouts and just pop a cap down on top of them to hold them all in place. And so there's a lot of variability. That's some really, really nice terrain, and matches a lot of the Necromunda aesthetic and a lot of the other stuff that they've been putting out. So I've been really impressed with it. But basically just been sitting and trimming pieces and gluing pieces of that together. And then tonight I sat down and actually put my wet palette back together because I had made a mess on it last time we were painting. And I'm sitting down and I've got Ixie and Hale's helm, and I'm starting to block in the non-metal metallic and starting to layer paint around on the helmet to start seeing how it can look. So that's pretty much what I've been doing this week. So we'll move it on to Duncan.
Oh, well, let's see here. This week has been very productive for me. I got a copy of the game Warblade Bannerlord, or Mountain Blade Bannerlord, and I've played that all week long and done no hobby stuff whatsoever. But I can state that running around on a horse with a spear and stabbing peasants is really fun. So I will kick it at this point over to Jack.
Oh, I will interrupt really quick. I will say one of my other purchases was Darktide. And much like Duncan, that sucked up a lot.
It was Destiny Iron Banner week. So I'm sure I can speak for Jacob a little bit.
So still, saying it to Jack.
The nuts and bolts of stuff, I didn't get a lot done today. A lot of looking at lists, trying to figure out what I want to build. Technically speaking, I'm done for Adepticon, as weird as that is. There's like maybe 2 models that I can and probably will redo. But it's been a lot of looking at all of my Ultramarine stuff, and it's all the stuff that I have as a whole, and figure out what I'm doing with it. I think I decided that all the current Marine stuff I have, whether it was earmarked for Ultramarines or not, are going into Ultramarines. That way, for everything else, I can just kind of start with a clean slate, because outside of them, I have no coherent idea of what I would want to do. I still kind of want to do a Custodes army, but looking at that book, it will be very entertaining making a list that is fun to play with and possibly
play against or play with.
I think
yes. It's all the above. I sent I sent one list to Duncan, and it was this is what is capable of doing, and I was just like, this is such a not fun list to play against. So
it did not look pleasant at all.
No. But I do think, and I will go on record, and I will be held accountable for this. The special swords that they have that are like 3 different weapon profiles. And anytime you announce the weapon profile, you have to like pose in like whatever that says, like wings spread wide, dabbing into your elbow, or whatever it is that the model does or the weapon does. You have to do it. I think it's only fair.
Yeah, it balances them.
The age of what are you talking about?
Jacob, my man, my dog, my homie from another mother. What have you been doing, dog?
Today I got to clipping up. So for it's been like 8 years ago, I won/purchased 2 of the Sectum Imperialis or whatever, the set with the 4 buildings in it. Picked up 2 of those, so finally got those all clipped off sprue. I'm gonna work on trying to cobble those together in advance of the Indy GT, as much terrain as we can get our hands on. Likewise, had a couple things to take care of around the house. Had to get the mic swapped out. A few other projects like that. Getting ready for sometime in the fiance. So she and I are trying to tidy things up, throw things out, or get things based on what we're gonna need or not going to try to duplicate. Do we have anybody else who has not gone for hobby progress?
I think our guests haven't.
Our guest, yeah.
One of you guys want to step up?
Yeah. So John, it's your fault, but I have I don't know. I don't even measure it in boxes anymore. I've got like 30 pounds of terrain that I've been working on for the past couple of weeks.
Good.
And then shut up you. And then I have also like 8 Realm of Battle boards in the garage from when I bought a store out of terrain, and so I started spraying those black with spray paint, and then I found a Sector Imperialis board out there, and then I found like 40 more pounds of GW buildings, and so my garage is it's looking pretty good right now if you're a hobbyist, but if you're my wife, you are not happy at all. So send tranquilizer darts, please. I'm running out of ammunition.
All right. I didn't really do a whole lot of hobby stuff until last night. I'm waiting for a tournament today. Terminator Sergeant. I'm actually using one of the Battle for Calth Chain Fist Combi Melta people that I converted with stitching a Doom Siren onto his back and gave him one of the old metal Noise Marine heads and a tail sticker's cape mutated in Chaos, and brought him today to a 40k RT. Went 2-1. Lost to sisters, and they're been doing a lot of playing and not a whole lot of building lately. Been trying to get my 40k levels up to where they.
Excellent. It sounds like some of us have been more productive than others, but nevertheless, it sounds like we're on good pace to hit some big goals before the end of the year. Specifically, it sounds like in prep for very exciting.
All I can say is spear plus peasant equals fun.
The true Banner Lord experience.
I mean, that's riding around on a horse, spearing peasants. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Yeah, Darktide is. This actually kind of leads us into the releases for this week. Is the beta for Darktide for PC started on Thursday, and I've been devoting a lot of time and a lot of hard drive space to hitting print screen almost every time I fire a shot, because a lot of the terrain is built off of GW kits, and so I've got a lot of inspiration for my upcoming ZM boards and things like that. But I've built a Preacher. I've got a friend of mine that joined the game, and even though when he played Inquisitor Martyr and summoned up a whole horde of demons to come and royally beat the snot out of him when he was in the intro level trying to spam his magic attacks, he decided to stick with Psychers and the Darktide, which is a little easier to control this time, and you get a little more notice that you're about to get warp screwed. And then dragged off to the Tentacle Realms. So he's picked the Psyker. So when the game officially releases, I'd like to try to organize some stuff with our listeners, maybe some game nights and things, and start going that way. I'm just hit level 10 today, so I'm a little slow on the game, but it is a blast to play and see all the 40k weapons and how they work, and how last guns are different from auto guns, and how you use a chainsaw that actually works and takes people apart. It is an absolute blast for people.
John,
like that type of game.
Sorry, man. I was going to say, is it crossplay, like different systems and PC, or is it just all PC and then all?
I think it's all PC. Someone had said that they looked it up and that it wasn't crossplay, but I could have sworn they said it was. It might just be because it's in beta, for PC exclusively right now, that it might be locked out.
Okay.
But at the very least, I have it on Steam, and that's where I'll be playing it.
Gotcha.
The other drop we had, keeping with things that I enjoy a lot, are the Ultramarine heads, and really cool crests. And then I found out that the secondary Ultramarines thing that they care a lot about, other than use, is lines. Ultramarines love putting lines on things.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, you don't associate bureaucracy with going fast, but they really like racing stripes.
Absolutely love it. Yeah, I think it's to organize the Excel spreadsheets. That's the starter line.
A1.
That makes sense. Do the lines just get longer every day that they sit out of the heresy?
I mean, you have to kill so many heretics before people forget.
Yeah, the Ultramarines heads seem to have kind of come and gone, not with a bang, but a whimper. These seem to have been a very, yup, those exist kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than having everyone fighting about the absolute worst heads in the galaxy on the Space Wolves, the absolute, I'll live with it, heads on the Night Lords. Now you've got okay, those exist, heads on the Ultramarines.
Well, it's like I'd say it's a little past middle, like on the good side compared to, say, like the Iron Hands. Wouldn't you all agree the Iron Hands are probably the best ones they've done so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
I think
and then you have Iron Hands and then Space Wolves.
I might say the Iron Warriors ones I would rank higher.
Okay. I mean, they're both of them are very good in comparison.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
as
they are uncontroversial but appropriate.
As an Ultramarines player, I look at them and I'm like, there's 3 of them that have the big U on the center. If they all would have had that big U on the center, and then they had the different vent patterns on the front, and the stripes are, I mean, you can paint the stripes or not paint the stripes as you want, but it gives it a little bit of something different. But I mean, I don't know. They're, like you said, they're there. They're about as expected. I would have preferred a little bit different. They'll work.
I like the last head sweater that they had for Ultramarines, the ones that were kind of flat.
Yeah, I was gonna just kind of speak up there. Weren't Ultramarines the only Legion to get 2 sets of heads and torsos from Forge World before this? Because you had both the Invictari and the Praetorian.
Yep, and they were amazing.
They were very nice. The Invictari, I thought, like, I wasn't a big fan of the winged faceplates, but the Praetor.
That's fair.
Yeah. Just interesting as we're getting closer to having everybody's Mark 6s out and being able to amass, like, or stack up for analysis the full range of helmets available to certain between both Heresy and 40k ops. It's interesting to see how the pile's kind of shaken out.
I look forward to them never releasing the Salamanders ever. I look forward to just being forgotten. It's my favorite.
What changed?
If they did the Iron Hands, they'll end up.
No! Don't give me hope. It's okay. You don't have to do.
They did White Scars, and White Scars bits took forever.
No. The con came out about the same time as 2.0.
I mean, that's actually really, really true. And I think we're all still waiting on the con's jet bike to show up.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
Yeah, because we got to keep rules for that, and we got to keep rules for Exodus that they still haven't shown off. Are there any other characters or character options that carried through last edition that we're still waiting on a sculpt for? Because I know we just got the 2 Dark Angel guys who got officials.
Wasn't there a Iron Warrior guy too? Or
no, because both the Iron Warriors were left out of the book, and they're entirely in the Legacies thing.
Okay.
Yeah, same with the Salamanders.
Same with all the Salamanders guys. And then they took our Legacy book and just ruined it.
And while one of them may not be very good, Ultramarines got 2 models for Renus Ventatus.
I think only one of them's actually an official one, though. True. The other one's just everyone uses it for it.
Just the Herald, but everybody used it for him before that they released the other one.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Brian? Probably about the really cool Praetors, Troopers children.
Oh, yeah, Ember's really golden crowns on top of purple helmets.
Well, it's better than having a toilet seat on your helmet.
That's a low bar, but it clears it.
At least I can count to the 2 sides of the seat.
That's fair. He doesn't consider stripes to be the highest form.
Stripes.
I love how many times, what is it now, 2 weeks ago, you and Alex just looked at each other.
I mean, it's the best form of humor there ever could be. Stripes. Ever since we both saw that meme, we both kind of got broken, and it's so wonderful.
Anyway,
I just finished Angel Exterminatus. Did they have a Sharokin model?
I don't think so.
Or rules even?
Not to my knowledge.
That's a little disappointing.
He's Lucius.
Anyone who beat Lucius should have rules.
He does. The rules are the rules of Lucius.
Yeah, he's got a model now too, Lucius.
I still
Lucius'
hold out.
Model's an early Lucius model, though, right? He doesn't have all the weird face stuff and all that, does he?
Yeah, he's got the facial scars.
He's got a couple, but not as Hellraiser-y look.
Well, there's no Sharkin, though. Sharkin killed Lucius, so Sharkin becomes Lucius.
No, that's in 40k. We don't play that nonsense here. This is a heresy group, sir.
Hey, there's never been rules for that in 40k either. It's just part of the fluff.
Good. 40k should get no good rules. Hot take.
I mean, it's a hard truth, but it's truth.
It doesn't already. I like it. Not everybody does. I've not played the new edition of 30k. I played maybe total of 30k in the first run, and I have not purchased or looked at the second run.
It's been pretty good. It's been really good so far. Other than the FAQ. The FAQ was middling. It was okay, I guess. I don't know. Try
seems
not
like
to be
people
too negative.
love their games. When I'm at the hobby store and I say either they're just, yay, 30K, this is great, we love being heresy, or someone's complaining about some combo that's completely broken.
Oh, well, people are always complaining about things like pinning and stuff like that, but I mean, as long as you don't abuse it, not a whole lot there to complain about.
I mean, that's pretty much the truth.
It's just 30K in general. I mean, there's always stuff to abuse in it. It's more of a narrative game than it is a competitive game like 40.
Well, that's something we're dealing in the local Houston meta with a lot is pinning is just abusive. It's you should take it out of the game. Or you could just not take a whole bunch of stuff with pinning in it and just be cool. Like I don't know, figure it out. You're adults. I don't know what to tell you.
That is too much. You're asking for too much for adults to figure stuff out.
You know what? I needed to come on this podcast. You guys have really unlocked some stuff for me that I was struggling with.
I don't think
I'm
everyone
asking too much.
Is it your deep seated attraction to certain people on this podcast? Is that what was helped unlocked?
Hang on now. No, we said we weren't going to talk about that.
No, you said we were going to talk about it. I never agreed.
Listen,
Jack,
I never knew that our relationship would go public.
Just because you walked in on us doesn't mean you get to talk about it everywhere.
I get to talk about whatever I want. I'm pretty. I'm cute. I'm popular to boot. Great hair. The boys all love to stare.
You are really committing to this gag, and I am really into it.
All I can think about is the old Saturday Night Live. Gosh darn it, you are handsome, and people like you. Now I'm just picturing Jack wearing an ugly Christmas sweater, so...
No Christmas sweater on Jack would be ugly. They'd all be cute.
You're adorable.
Just like Jack. That's right. Two can play this game.
And Jacob slowly dying. Like, how much of this do I have to edit out?
It's fine. Like I said,
nobody's swearing.
you guys have made episodes into fun scavenger hunts for me. I got to find all the things that need cut.
Why would you edit out? Hang on. Whoa. Why would you edit this out? Me and Jack have just finally unlocked our love potential for each other, and you're going to edit it out?
Yeah, he does that. He's the killer of fun.
This is a travesty.
He is a killer of fun.
I didn't know that I was signing up to be on a heavily edited podcast. This is crazy.
It gets even funnier if I stitch your words together so you say weird stuff you weren't expecting. I haven't done it yet that anybody's noticed.
Listen, as long as I don't say things...
This group is publishing content that's PG. How do you not realize it's heavily edited?
This is true. I didn't think about that. So if I put an F-bomb in there, you have to cut it out?
Yes.
Pretty much, yes.
Jacob is an all-star and deserves 8 times the pay he gets, which is 0, for all the work he does.
Oh, so generous, so generous.
Wow. I'm going to put one in here somewhere. I'm not going to tell you where.
There's be like me and Duncan and just going like a curse word tirade for 5 minutes.
We would never.
All right.
This is a family program. Thank you.
Okay. So we brought
the best
what are we
our
talking
special
about, guys?
guest. It's don't make this joke.
Guys, we have absolutely gone off the rails for the past 10 minutes.
We really have.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Now, whose fault was that?
Mine.
John,
Exactly.
you were saying, John?
I'm trying. We brought Brian on board to discuss the Emperor's Children fluff, since we're trying to move on with legions in numerical order. We've done the Dark Angels fluff and how to play, but like Brian was saying, he's more of a 40K player, but he's been playing Emperor's Children for almost 20 years, and I figured he'd be a good reference for how the fluff started and what it's changed into a little bit and some things like that. So Brian, what got you into Emperor's Children, and what is their fluff like?
This is a family podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm aware that we did pick the Legion that probably isn't the least PG.
I mean, Fulgrim does love his family.
Let's yes.
I'm proud of you.
So I started with Aurora Chapter Space Marines back when I first got into 40K. I had a girlfriend buy me the starter box and Squad of 5 Terminators. Favorite color was green, so I just went with Aurora Chapter. And I'm playing, I was playing in college, and my buddy knew of certain proclivity of mine and was like, hey, you should really be playing Slanesh. And I was like, okay, you know what? I think it took a little bit of convincing, but then I was like, all right, let's do this. So I started collecting for his children back before they had any. Sort of started diving into the conversion stuff. I like the noise marines. I like the obsession. Sort of started building the army from there. It's been sort of an obsession of mine. Everything to exile knights. I'm got upwards of 60,000 doing that, and the books and rules and stuff getting better and better.
So give us the crash course. Where does the story start for his children?
Story of Emperor's Children starts with the Lair. So the Emperor's Children were they were loyal, of course, as everything else, and their leader was just really pushing the idea of perfection. They had to be perfect. So lots of dueling, lots of art, and of of art. By that, they were always willing to show off, always willing to model for others. They saw warfare as just another thing perfect. It wasn't just about it was about defeat perfectly. You had to complete, every ruse they tried to pull, you had to be ready for. Every sneak attack they tried to make, you had to show them, oh, we are to do that, and just get there. So they finally get to the Lair, and they enter this temple where the Lair had been worshiping Slanesh for his children, about the worship of any. So they were just sort of astounded at the level of effort session that had gone in this temple that the Lair had created. Really wouldn't have done much to the League if it hadn't done what it did to Fulgrim. And so Fulgrim was simply the most impressed and affected by visiting this Lair temple. And when he decided to take one of their swords in the temple for himself, that's sort of when everything started. The sword was possessed by a Slanesh. It whispered to him. It buttered him up. It told him all the things he wanted to hear. It told him how he was at everything. It told him how great of a leader he was and just started whispering to him ways that he could be better. And if it wasn't for his chief apothecary, Fabius Bile, I don't think things would have gone quite as bad as fast as it did. Bile liked to try to experiment on the Emperor's children, prove them, and for a while, Fulgrim was kind of like, hey, we're already pretty great, you don't do that. But with the urging of this demon and the sword, he was just like, go to town. And so he just started messing with them, started their gene, physiology, and it just got worse or better and better point of view of Fulgrim.
Yeah, I just finished Angel Exterminatus, and I have to say Fabius Bile also needs to join the evil twirling mustache crew, along with
you mean Fabulous Bile?
Fabulous Billy.
Fabulous Biley.
It's interesting because I don't know in the stories and the codexes and stuff. Fabius Bile was exiled from the Emperor's children, and yet nowhere in the heresy does it really seem like anyone has a problem with what he's doing. It really makes me wonder what the heck did he do afterwards? People take him out of there. He was upgrading them. He was grafting Sonic, adding all kinds of limbs and whatnot to them, doing all kinds of. And Fulgrim was kind of just at some point after the heresy, I guess. Bile was he went too far or something.
He starts trying to clone Primarchs.
That was at Fulgrim's request. So Fulgrim actually asked him to clone Ferrus Manus so that he could convince him to join the cause. He ended up there was a little the story Primogenitor. Fulgrim tries it. I think you only see one or two attempts, but it's implied that he's asked Bile to do this dozens of. He clones him. He sits him down to play regicide. He tries to convince him to join Horus. Ferrus Manus just turns him down every single time. He kills Ferrus Manus and it's like, all right, bring me another one, and just tries over and over again.
So if you actually read the Black Legion novel, the first one by ADB, the end of it, and this has been out for a couple of years, so it's not spoiling anything. Fabulous had stolen Horus's body from the Sons of Horus remnants, and had eradicated most of what was left of the Sons of Horus who weren't their own little war bands. And he was using that and other DNA and everything he had gotten to clone not just Horus, but he was remaking all of the Primarchs so that he could have basically an army of Primarchs slave to his will.
Yeah, and Horus became a freak show because his soul was obliterated by the Emperor. But
yeah,
I think in that same story Brian was talking about, Fulgrim lets it drop that he's on number 20 or something like that with trying to convince Ferrus.
Yeah, and I think when Fabulous did that post heresy, that was when he got kind of kicked from the children.
You'd think,
but I mean but he's still. I mean, there's a point in there where they get rescued by Perturabo, and he just randomly kills one of their apothecaries. So I mean, he's in order to take his gene seed. So I mean, he's definitely an evil dude the whole time, right? He's just an evil dude that the Emperor's Children are okay with for a while until they're
Yeah,
not.
he
So,
he. I'm pretty sure that pretty much what we were seeing is they were fine with his evilness when they didn't know about it and when they first started discovering it, and then they kind of went, "Man, you're a little too screwy even for us." And
Well, when it
considering
helped them,
all
they
the
were
Slanesh
okay with it.
worship, yeah,
I think if he was cloning all the Primarchs, then I think probably there was, Fulgrim realized it's only a matter of time before he started making copies of
he did.
either he deals with it that one way or the other.
And what happens if that clone is more perfect than I am?
Yeah, kind of makes sense. But that was in, like I said, that the first novel of the Black Legion by ADB. So it was actually kind of an interesting take because it shows multiple different Primarchs as babies or as small critters inside of these big giant glass vats they were being grown in. And the only one that he had grown to full effect at that point was Horus, who was perfectly Horus, and then got murdered by Abaddon, which it fits. So anyway, Emperor's Children. Obviously, they had more backstory before the lair, but we don't really have a lot of that information, at least from the books and everything.
Yeah.
What are your likes and dislikes about them during the lead up to the siege?
So during the lead up to the siege, they were kind of just harboring the white scars. There's a lot of rumors flying around that like either Slanesh also, or perhaps instead of Fulgrim, actually wanted the Khan instead. Surprised about that. That kind of, you can find little nuggets here and there of lore that suggest that. So whether that's true or not, the Emperor's Children definitely had sort of a rivalry with them of Fulgrim jabbing at the Khan with, "Oh, I hear you do interesting things to your jet bike." Says, I hear you do it with your soldiers. There's I can't remember what to the books it is, but there's a book all about the White Scars and how they're fighting kind of from spaceport to spaceport, dealing with Emperor's Children, kind of holding them off here as they're trying to get back to Terra. And in reading it, I think it was like Wings of Heaven. The author never really seemed to have a decision in each of the battles. Like, it wasn't really conclusive. Like, the White Scars win, Emperor's Children. In the end, it seemed like the White Scars kind of just seized the Emperor's Children and fled, and then escaped the blockade and got to the Eye of Terror. And so I kind of wish that the Emperor's Children had kept some of their like being able to, because it seemed like they got kind of outplayed. The Scars got around to Terra. I would have liked to have seen that finished at Terra, but the siege kind of worked out different. If you're waiting to talk about that till later than later, but yeah, it just seemed like the Emperor's Children kind of sort of got outplayed in most of their engagements leading up to this because they were distracted, I guess, and that kind of annoys me that they had kind of gotten into this whole, well, let's have some fun with slaves and let's have some fun with each other and let's have some fun with body modification and equipment modification and focus on the effective fighting machine.
That's kind of the evil in general, though. I mean, that's the whole trope of being a bad guy, is you get lost in whatever weird excess hedonistic crap that you're doing instead of trying to get the job done.
Yeah, I just wish they'd still been able to fight. A lot of the heroes and stuff were still heroic and doing dually things, but they really sort of started to play into and then play off of the arrogance guys were able to. I think Khan really understands when someone's an egotist and a show off. He can really sort of manipulate. He kind of does that to.
Yeah, if you want to talk about the siege, that's fine. It is kind of funny when every time Fulgrim keeps trying to like bait people by not appearing as Fulgrim. When he's talking to, what was it, Zardu Lyak, and he just shows up as a random guy. And Zardu's like, "Okay, that's funny, Fulgrim. You can come out now."
I think.
Yeah, I'm not really keen on the Zardu Lyak thing. He just seemed like a lot of Deus Ex Machina for a lot of the times he appeared until he got wiped out.
What book is Zardu in?
Pretty much all the siege up until third or fourth book of the siege.
Yeah, he was also like pre-siege as well. He was the one that collected Fulgrim while Perturabo was collecting Angron.
Yep.
So that was like either the first book or the second to last pre-siege book.
Hold on, I'll actually tell you the book name on that one, because he was, I think, in two more other than that one.
Yeah, and I think the only reason Zardu made it in there, because it did seem like he was kind of a late addition to the books. I think he was probably ADB's favorite character on the game table. I think that's probably one of the main reasons he made it in there.
Yeah, I think he started showing up right after Lorgar got kicked out of everything for being too Lorgar. Because Lorgar was trying to make everything about him, and Horus kind of got and said, "Be gone with you." And yeah, he shows up from somewhere right around Wolfsbane on. So maybe like the last 4 or 5 novels before the Siege of Terra, and then I'm pretty sure he shows up until the first wall, maybe up until Saturnine, and then he's gone. He gets obliterated by Rogel Dorn, I think. I can't really remember.
And is he from? Which guys is
Zardu Layak is a word bearer.
Yeah, he's the one with the blade slaves. He's got a mask that looks like a grinning
Oh,
demon. That's got
okay,
fish hooks on part of his face.
Blade
He's got
Slayer.
6 eyes.
Yeah.
He constantly talks about his fishhook face constantly.
Yeah.
Okay, that guy.
It's like the wet leopard growl of the word bearers is the fact that mask hurts him so much, and he's always talking about it. While he's talking, his mask is hurting him. While he's thinking, and creased his brow, which caused the mask to manipulate the muscle. Like, okay, we get it. Your fishhooks dig a lot.
Yeah, his first appearance in the novels is Slave to Darkness. Then he's in Solar War, Lost in the Damned. He's in Apocalypse, and he's in the First Wall. And I think that's it. Yeah.
The Emperor's Children in the Siege, they annoyed me, but I already knew what was going to happen from me. They kind of stuck with the old lore. They included them, I think, more than the old lore did, but they still had them leave and not after their initial thing. And it's so interesting to me how they're kind of doing Age of Terra, with everyone just kind of walking away. I mean, to me, it seems very much like most Apocalypse games, where like everybody's all gung ho in the end, and they start getting tired around turn. And I think John knows what I'm talking about. That we've played a lot of Apocalypse, and people are just like, "All right, I'm just taking all my forces off this table," and you're just like, "What? What are you doing? Like, why are you leaving? We still have a battle to win." And they're just like, "Nah, I'm."
Yeah, there's definitely parts of that, and that was, you kind of got that problem when you're looking at 30, 40-year-old fluff, where you're trying to make sure everything matches correctly, and sometimes the guys were just like, I'm out. Or as Lucas likes to point out, his favorite part is where Perturabo is like, "How do I beat Dorn? Give me the dumbest man we have."
I mean, it kind of fit.
Yeah,
it
did. It was weird.
Everyone's thinking
It
everyone's
was
going to be.
funny, but at the same time, you're like, oh, that's funny because it's sad at the same time.
I mean, all I got to say to that is stripes.
Yeah, the old lore, the Emperor's Children just decided to go wander around and take slaves instead. Just completely ransacked Earth for resources and then ran away. And that sort of made them one of the biggest players right after this. That they had a bunch of supplies while the other legions had kind of broken themselves on Earth and on Terra.
Okay.
And then in the new books, they attack and then immediately just go like, we're bored.
Well, it's not really all that entirely in the Siege.
He fought
Fulgrim had a really good fight with Dorn and was losing it, and then he got angry. And then he and his boys all off to go steal slaves from Terra and had nothing else to do with the Siege.
Exactly. After that, like, I mean, after Fulgrim was defeated by words,
him
he's
and
leaving.
his anger fit.
Our Legion decided they would leave too. What's interesting to me though is that they play up that the Legion, got an entire retreat order, and then later on we just sort of we see them here and there. There's I think T is her name. They call her. She's a Skitari soldier. They just call T. Her actual name is a lot longer than. And then she and this random guardsman guy kind of wander around, and they keep finding like these Emperor's Children patrols here and there. And it's like, why are they still there? Like, they're not at the main battle. They're not really, they're not gone either. They're still involved, but not really heavily. So it kind of plays up the organization.
Yeah, but that was T's area, if I remember correctly. She was like because everything was hitting the main wall, and they were like let's say I forget what direction, like the north wall. And T and them were like on the west or the east wall. Like, it was very far outside of everything. So it made sense if the Emperor's Children were just kind of futzing around building, pyramids or whatever, that they would run into some randos out in the middle of nowhere just trying to defend a lightly guarded area.
I mean, it fits.
Would go into more detail with like as far as the building pyramids. There's like this whole scene with some perpetuals and some garden and everything, and the Emperor's Children have completely like taken over this, and they kind of the scene deals with it and then it moves on and it never kind of addresses the idea of like, why are the Emperor's Children there aside from pretty flowering plants, and then they never really go into much beyond that. They're there. They don't say why, aside from it being just sort of a hedonistic pleasure place, and then they decide to leave.
I can explain that in full, and it's because the perpetual writing and the writing about everything about the perpetuals is terrible, and nobody cares, and we all hate it.
Yep.
Yes, they bring in the perpetual, and they do the whole "you got killed, but now you're back because you're perpetual," and then the first thing she does is like, "I think I'll die," and why? Like, why are you doing that? You don't have to. And is this a thing that perpetuals can do? That it can choose to give up and die? Like, why are you dying? Why are you having your final death or whatever? And
Oh,
then,
don't forget they can also like transfer their perpetuality to it.
and yeah, and then even then, like they also Malkador like is gone and then is back again without really. And I can't really remember if Malkador is supposed to be perpetual or not. I think he is, right?
He
He
is.
didn't used to be, and then they retconned him into one, which basically like made his offer to sit on the Golden Throne pointless.
And then like so in Fury of Magnus, he's they make a big deal out of him dying, and everyone's really upset, and like the Emperor is sad
Because no one knew he was a perpetual. Most of those people did not know what perpetuals are. Remember, we're seeing it from the viewpoint of the reader, who we know what this nonsense is. We know what these terrible writing cliches are. But the characters, they don't know what a perpetual is.
But the Emperor was sad Malkador had gotten killed.
Yeah.
The Emperor was like, "Oh, Malkador's dead," and it's like, don't you know? Like,
yeah, there's a lot of, especially when they tried to do that. One of the forgotten Primarchs was Malol. Like that book, my eyes rolled in the back of my head so hard. Like
I'm just not going to comment.
Yeah, let's
anything involving Erda, I do not.
We gave the Primarchs apparently a sixth sense, so they always know where each other is and who they are.
They're Highlanders.
Even though that flies completely full in the face of all of the lore up to that point, but yet like perpetuals, which like never needed to be part of this narrative, they just show up, and we couldn't give them the Highlander ability. No.
It's
Anyway.
I will say this, and it might be a hot take, but I don't think any of us here are going to disagree with me on this. I'm absolutely certain that if the Perpetuals had never been introduced into the Heresy series, everyone would have been happier.
Yeah, I was really happy with them being that little footnote and Rogue Trader, and occasionally brought back up as maybe possibly why this weird thing happened, or why a writer accidentally wrote the same character in two different locations. Like something like that I was okay with, but when they leaned into it is when a lot of the mystique disappears.
Yeah.
Especially when Vulcan became a perpetual, and then every time he resurrected, he was somehow weaker. Like he was getting headshot and killed from a shuriken pistol, whereas before he was taking like 40 or 50 of them to the face when he's fighting Eldar. Like it didn't make a lot of sense. And that's kind of the problem with, you can only write as smart as you are. I throw that out there. But you run into those problems where you've got the inability to plan for wars and things like that. I think you need consultants on this that maybe, I don't know, think more about history, or you would have some other people in there that would do things like that. Like a lot of sci-fi I like, where they do like military consultants if they're doing war things, and they have they're people that know more about the object that they're writing about than the writer themselves do.
Yeah. The inability to roadmap what the actual plan was did not do any favor, and so we get such literary masterpiece, Damnation of Pythos, Unremembered Empire,
and Karn flipping in the air like a salmon out of water.
Yes.
Okay. Unremembered Empire, I actually do not hate. Damnation of Pythos, I actually do not hate, because much like Fury of the Abyss or whatever, I read it once and said, "Oh, this is an abomination," and promptly will never read it again. But I don't hate them anywhere near as much as I hate everything that has to do with the Perpetual.
Mind the idea of Perpetuals. I don't think they necessarily have to have special powers beyond living forever. I kind of like the idea of Erda. I think if she was supposed to be that big of a deal, we other times, like, it's the D&D party that comes across the shopkeeper that turns out to be a level 25 epic whatever, only because the PCs tried to kill them and to die. So now they're just amazing god creatures. Why are they there? Like, why would the amazing god creature be running a shop in the middle?
I'm here to punish the murder hobos, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm strong only because I don't want to be killed by the big bad, the bad party coming after. And like, but I mean, yeah, I don't mind characters living forever. I like some of the discussions. I like the chance to have like this backstory of like how the Emperor was back during like the time of the Mongols, at the time of the Tower of Babel, although that got a little bit weird. But just living a long time, I feel powers.
I liked when the Grammatic, as much as I don't like Grammaticus himself, I did enjoy when they were going through, Person, when they were going through time and they went to the Iraq War, and then they went to Vietnam, and they went to other places. Like, those are kind of neat. I think they needed to be a little more accurate when they were in those time periods. But especially when Grammatica City killed MLK, like where the did that come?
Yeah, why did we have to have that plot?
I think that we could have not shown a lot of that and just gone with where we first got introduced to All and had him where his memory and started talking about how he was with the Argonauts, how he remembered using the bayonet, learning to use it at Verdun, things like that. Just fine with it. Showing the rest of it, no, thanks. Didn't need it.
It's fascinating to me as I get into BattleTech and I see what they've retconned or how they've retconned things and how the approach and the handling is completely different. So the old cartoon, they were just like, oh yeah, that's totally in-universe propaganda. Some of the earlier novels where there's some hints at something equivalent to the Force or psychic powers when they were unsure, they hadn't really codified the universe as to whether or not there would be supernatural phenomenon. They've gone back and even just been like, well, in the heat of battle, equipment can always malfunction, and we're pretty sure because we don't have any actual combat footage of the event in question, this has been spun into legend, and people are experiencing, for lack of a better term, like a man where everybody's recollection of the event has now fed into itself and compounded on itself, and you have a modern myth that is not canonically accurate. And seeing Heresy just not even attempt any of that to try to reconcile issues that were present in the lore previously, let alone like what's been folded in. Another one that people like to point to is Horus. Horus is totally fine, and Horus has to make it to the throwdown on Terra with Big E. And Sanguinius. But somebody at some point was like, oh yeah, by the way, Lehman Russ totally fights Horus. Well, now what do we do? How do we figure this out? Because clearly, if Russ doesn't put up a fight, then Russ is gonna die, and we can't have Russ die because he's gotta live for a later destiny at the Wolf time. But if he fights Horus and he wins, then Horus doesn't make it to Terra to get his soul smote by the Emperor. And they're like, oh, we'll just have the Emperor give him the Dionysius spear, and he'll just gravely wound Horus. And it's like, you couldn't have fixed this. You couldn't have just been like, oh yeah, Horus was absolutely just pumping himself up pro wrestling style, just being like, yeah, I fought Horus and he couldn't kill me. Because Horus doesn't exist anymore. Dude could totally just lie to everybody about saying he got in a fight with Horus, and who's going to be around to tell him otherwise? Bjorn the Fell-Handed and the other Primarchs? Yeah, what other Primarch is going to, call him to his face and just be like, dude, you never fought Horus?
Or make it some type of demon imagination or something like that. There's so much warp.
Well, we know the one guy that would call Horus out.
That's fair, but it's the point that we could have handled this in universe, and we didn't, and now, in my opinion, the lore is worse for us not having done the administrative part of figuring out what before we started writing, and before we started signing different authors to different plot lines.
It's kind of like they didn't have, a universe Bible, Like, this is the stuff that has to happen or whatever. They just kind of let's go do that.
There's so many discussions of the super meetings and the secret Black Library. They call themselves the Black Library or whatever, where they meet behind the scenes, and they had these once or twice a year super meetings. And Alan Bly before Bly, it was Alan Merritt was there with the super book and his 900 sticky notes and all this other crap. But yeah, it seems like they had a really good idea in the beginning, and I mean, that was how the heresy started. Remember, it was only going to be 3 novels. No, we meant 8. Sorry, these are a cash cow. We meant 45. Just kept growing and ballooning and making money. So, yeah, I still like the game. I still enjoy lots of the fluff, but there are parts that I'm just, okay, you had to write that because it's current year.
Orange.
There is a lot of stuff that could be, and this is where I talked with Dan a long time back. There's an essential reading list for the Heresy series, and if you skip roughly about half the books, you're just fine. You get the entirety of the Heresy. You don't need the ancillary BS. And there are several novels that are ancillary BS that don't need to exist, that really don't matter. I mean, yes, they may have smidgens of bits of information that are useful, but most of them, like the Furious Abyss, the fact that the Furious Abyss existed and then was destroyed, that's fine. That's literally all you need to know, is that this idiot word bearer decided to kick off the Calth run early and didn't do it well and got destroyed with this ship. Oh, by the way, they made 3 of them, not just 1. That's all you need to know. I mean, you don't need to know the novel because the novel's terrible. Ithos is another one. You don't need to know anything about it because the entire book has nothing, that has zero matter to the rest of the series. Ruinstorm is another. You don't really need to know anything about it because it's just the Blood Angels fought through the Ruinstorm to get to Terra, and the Dark Angels and Ultramarines helped them to get through it. The end.
So if I'm like trying to run a parallel here, just so I can understand for myself, is this Essentials reading list something tantamount to like Machete Order that people used to advertise or talk about for the Star Wars films? For those not aware, okay, this is like way deep down the nerd rabbit hole. Machete Order was watch episode 4, watch episode 5 so that you get the big twist ending to 5. Then you watch 2 and 3 as if they're an extended flashback, and then you snap back to episode 6. You do away with episode 1 because basically nothing happens there that matters, because everything that happened there ends up explained in 2 or 3, or is directly retconned in 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And for a while, people hailed it as the best way to introduce someone to the first 6 Star Wars.
Yeah, that's the way I did with my wife. She was happy with it. She a couple times she'd be like, what was Jar Jar? And we watched episode 1. She's like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't watch that in order.
Yeah, no, I actually, this is a lot like that. And I actually have it written up somewhere. I gave it to Dan a while back.
I'm sure there's a list online somewhere.
I know Ryan Kimmel had a list that was similar.
Yeah.
But so
there's the list that Dan has.
That's my pitch there, is the idea that someone has put together a list of, here is a relatively concise Cliff Notes single thread main storyline that will pull you through from Istvan all the way through to Terra. Now, admittedly, like Siege of Terra gets a little uglier because I think that's a more cohesive book series. There's fewer side novels, but that obviously introduces its own problems because
it's not the Siege is less Japanese RPG. It doesn't have all the side quests that you could just do instead of the main quest, and then you come in like buffed out level 99.
Oh, so then it's just a different JRPG. This is your destiny, and you must follow it. Do not stray from the path.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
I remember Kimmel having stuff to skip so much as just having a completely different order of things. And I admit, through the first 25 books I read, I mostly followed the Kimmel order, and it made a lot of sense. I would do things like, I got into the Dark Angels, so instead of stopping where he said to stop the Dark Angels, I'd go another book later and read a little more stuff that's further ahead and stuff. But for the first, I read the first 6 novels in order, and then I read the Kimmel order until I recently got back into it, and then I got the Duncan list of, these are the ones that Duncan thinks are the most important, to make sure you're reading through all of them to understand what's going on in the end. And that's the kind of what I'm jumping back in and reading the rest of them in published order, but just picking the ones that are the good ones in there.
I wouldn't even say that my list is actually the good ones.
Yeah, the important ones, I guess.
Yeah.
Good as in, move the story forward as much as.
I think, personally, like, the fact that there's 18 of every, you need a book, at least one book, explaining what each legion is doing during all of this time, at least supposedly. I almost think that if we were going to retcon the story, I would have just had certain legions basically just taken out. Like, the sizes of the legions are always kind of indeterminate. They just have enough troops to make a story, whatever story you're writing. Like in the Siege of Terra, even they'll be like, "Oh, this horrible thing happened, and 100,000 troops get wiped out." It's like, wow, that's most of the legions. Like, no, they got like millions more. Okay, well, cool. And then this other horrible thing happens, and 1 million get wiped out. And like, okay, that's the legion destroyed. No, they still got plenty more. like anytime they need something, they have them. And I think if we had just had the story written like as they went to up to the siege of like, yep, this legion, they fought them, they're wiped out nearly to a man. We won't see them anymore for the rest of this series, and was just sort of started narrowing it down to the final players that do all of the really cool story things.
Well, I don't know though, because I mean, like Betrayer is probably my favorite heresy novel, and to be fair, Betrayer is a side quest novel. I mean, it doesn't really move a lot forward towards getting to the siege per se. I mean, it kind of tells you what's going on with them there and get some backstory into a lot of stuff. But you know, if they'd have done that, you probably wouldn't have got that. And that's my favorite book. So I just think it's the lack of an overall storyboard for the whole set of novels, and then the retconning, and also the thing that irks me about a lot of the novels is the not matching the games, right? The Stormbolters and the Chimeras, a lot of the things that are through there that aren't supposed to exist, that kind of thing. But you know, I guess the interesting thing about it is that, you know, we all love the lore and we love the overarching story, and there's books I'm sure that I like that some of you guys really don't like, and vice versa, right? So it's, you know, I think the breadth of novels allows everybody to pick out, like you said, here's your Legion, here's what you like, you know, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, it's kind of like me on that. I love the novel Legion. I don't know why, I just do. I really like that book. But it's absolutely useless to read for the actual series. It's all about side quests, and it
outside of the fact that it's like, oh, here's what John Grammaticus was doing for a while. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's not pointless because you've got the Cabal.
Yeah, so the Cabal are
Betrayer
useless.
had Angron going demon, so
Yep, Betrayer is a good book. I like Betrayer a lot, and Betrayer matters because it shows why the Ultramarines didn't have a huge impact throughout the rest of the heresy. It shows where a lot of the word bearers were tied up, and it turns Angron from a Primarch who's dying from the brain rot caused by the nails to becoming Demon Prince Angron. So yes, I think that is one of them that does need to be on the must-read list. Legion, like I said, as much as I like the book because it doesn't show everything from the aspect of a Marines, but it shows from like a member of the Old 100 who really needed to actually get a lot more play and a lot more actual mention in the series, is the original founding Imperial Army groups.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite books is Nemesis, and that literally does nothing but kill one son of Horus. So
exactly.
Yeah, I get it. And if you want to talk about, you know, killing, Brian was talking about killing Marines, I recommend you really don't look at the Beast Rises books, because they literally wipe out Imperial Fist chapter twice and resurrect it from the ground up by calling in all the other successor chapters. Everybody donates a half dozen Marines, and they come back alive, and they die again, and they do it a second time. And so yeah, it's that book series had it's even worse than the Heresy. But what's funny is that one was planned from start to finish. These dozen books are going to do this thing, and they're going to tell this story, and it does have some tie-ins to the Heresy, because Cinderman, I'm blowing the whole thing anyway, Cinderman ends up being the Lord of the Assassins, and he's the one that tries to kill all the Tie Lords, and realizes that he's the one that can lead the Imperium better than anyone else can, because he saw Horus up close and personal, so he knows what the problems are.
Yeah.
So it's got interesting parts, but yeah, just like the Heresy, that book series had the worst as far as like giant retcons, as like, oh, all these Imperial Fists are dead. No, lol, they're just all back alive. Okay, now they're all dead again. You can't lose chapters in 40k wise. You can't really lose thousands of Marines. Say that they're all dead and then bring them back to life. And Heresy, you're a little more lenient because you can say, yeah, okay, the Ultramarines had 400,000 Marines.
And that's one thing I do like about some of the later books, is it literally talks about hot batching Marines.
Yeah.
I did like that.
The vaults on Luna were doing, and Korax tried to do and made bird people.
Yep. And the Sons of Horus were doing it. And I know the World Leaders were doing it. And I think there was more, but I can't remember off the top of my head. You know, that actually wouldn't be a bad topic for an entire episode one night, would be just Heresy, the reading list, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put it in the list.
We should do that.
In fact, I need to publish the list so y'all can... Well, we've all talked about them individually in the chat, but we need to get an idea of what all the thoughts are.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even say it's necessary to go over the synopsis of each book. We could do that, but it would take forever.
Yeah.
but kind of.
Go ahead and finish.
But I was going to say, but kind of for those of us who have gotten really, really deep in the novels lore, I mean, I own every single one of them, either in print or digital or audio or all three in some cases.
Yeah.
I think those of us who are really, really deep in it could each present our own reading list, how we think we should, what order we think it should be read in, and why we think certain ones should be left off because of being trash.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but I think like many times we're starting to ramble, Jacob.
Yeah, I think we are.
Yep, and that sounds like a good a time as to have us sign off then. Did anybody have any notes before we left?
I was going to say, I think we're definitely going to put together this idea for later, talk about our favorite books and our least favorite books. But I also want to put it out there to the listeners that if anyone's interested in a Dark Tide team up or league and things like that, feel free to post your Steam information or PM it to me, and I'll make a spreadsheet that can be accessed.
Yeah, especially with us having those group chats open now. That'd be a great way to be able to coordinate a little bit of matchmaking.
And I do appreciate everyone's been real nice on the group chats. We don't have anybody breaking rules. We do have a couple rules as far as, we are trying to keep it PG and trying to keep it at
no
least.
porn, no politics, no piracy.
Yep, there we go.
That's a good one.
Printing.
I mean, you can print. You can print a lot of things. Just print things you are legally allowed to.
Like your list.
That's dubious. Eventually they'll want a subscription fee for that. But before that sends us off on another rant, I've been Jacob, and this evening I've been joined by...
Dan.
Duncan.
Jack?
John.
Jamie, who's currently hanging out on his phone.
And our special guest.
Yep.
Well, Michael's already gone, so it's up to you.
Yeah.
This is where you say your name.
Was it Brian?
Oh, yeah, Brian,
you're good, man.
Earlier, yeah.
Brian, we're glad that we were able to have you join us and talk about Emperor's Children. Hopefully we'll be able to get you on the show again to be able to talk about some of their Legion rules, Rights of War, and some of their unit entries. But regardless, remember, stay accountable to your hobby and your buddies, and we'll see you here next time.